As the next part of looking at functions, I want to look at how you handle taking a variable number of parameters when a function is called. And as I note right here, when you allow a parameter to be repeated, we refer to this as a Varargs parameter. And so far we've written functions that take one instance of a parameter. And what I mean by that right here is that I is one instance of a parameter. So I only take I, and then I use I right here. So it's one parameter, one input parameter that I'm allowing right here. And in Scala, you can make this function take 0 or more integer parameters. And all you have to do is add this star after the parameter type. So what I mean by that is this star right here. And then inside the function, you handle that parameter just like you received a sequence. So here I define a function. I call it print is 0 or more. It takes this input parameter that I call ints. And then ints is a Varargs parameter because I include not just the data type int, but also that star after that. And then inside the function, I refer to ints here, and I just treat it as a sequence. So I call for each on that, and then print each int that I receive. And then here I show the different ways that this can be called. So let's go ahead and copy that and take it over to the REPL. So here's that function in the REPL, and I can show how it works. So we can say print 0 or more. And so I do nothing right there. It prints nothing. If I give it a 1, it prints that. And give it a couple parameters, it does that, and so on. And then that will just keep on going because, again, inside the function, I am treating that as a sequence, and I call for each and then print line. And a note down here in the bottom of this page, there are 2 rules about Varargs parameters. The first rule is that a function can only have one Varargs parameter. And then the second rule is that if a function has multiple parameters, the Varargs parameter must be the last parameter in the list of parameters. And I show an implementation of that rule in this function. So this one is called print stuff. It takes multiple parameters. And notice that the Varargs parameter is the last parameter. So this is allowed to compile. As a first input parameter, I take this one, I call it string, and it has the type string. And then after that, I take a Varargs parameter. I call this one int again. So I print the string on the first line of the function, and then on the second line of the function, I do what I did before and print all the integers using for each. And then I show in this section how this function can be used. So you can call it with just a string, you can call it with a string and one int, or a string with as many integers as desired afterwards. And if you want to know why those 2 rules are required, just take a look at these invalid functions, and then you can ask yourself, why won't these compile? So here I attempt to use a Varargs parameter as the first parameter, and then in the second example, I try to use not only this one Varargs parameter, but multiple Varargs parameters. And then I note here, if you don't see the problem right away, take a look at this following code and try to understand what the compiler will think. So here I have bad function 1, and I pass in 3 integers, 1, 2, 3. And the problem, both from a compiler perspective and a human perspective, is how are you going to allocate these 3 integers? So you look up here and you say, well, should all 3 of those integers be this parameter? Or should one of these be this parameter and the rest be here? And if you think through that process, you'll see the problem. And then again, for bad function 2, which is this one here, you can go through the same thought process and wonder, okay, now how am I supposed to allocate these 3 integers between this Varargs parameter and this one here? So neither one of those will work. And that's because of these 2 rules that I laid out here on the previous page.